If you've been stuck trying to reach the same health goal over and over and you keep starting over on Monday, this might be the thing that is actually holding you back and sabotaging you from reaching your goals. So, I have a special guest with you guys today. And Brad, you are the first male guest to appear on the Postpartum Shift podcast. Can you share a little bit about you, how you got into what you do, and then we'll just dive right into what we're going to be chatting about today because this is something that our moms need to hear.
Absolutely. And I want to just first say thank you for having me here. And I can imagine that a lot of the moms listening are like, what am I going to learn about postpartum and eating healthy and health goals from a dude? And so I just want you to know that I see you. But one thing that I specialize in is human behavior and the subconscious forces that either help or hurt you reaching your goals. A lot of times people will have the exact right strategy on what to do, but for some reason they can't get themselves to stay consistent or they can't get themselves to stay started or to get started. And there's a reason why that happens. So I started off just struggling over and over and over again to hit my goals. It was like I was start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. And nothing seemed to work, even though it was working for everybody else. And I would start to get in my head. Is success just not meant for me? Am I destined to be in this place? I literally remember myself sitting on my couch watching Friends reruns, binge eating microwave nachos, feeling sorry for myself because nothing was working. And I remember one of my mentors said, dude, you need a mindset coach because what you're doing right now, it's not working. And I was like, well, I'm $92,000 in debt. I can't afford a mindset coach. But I figured, nothing has worked up until this point. So if nothing changes, nothing changes. I remember hiring that coach. And on our very first call, she said something that transformed my life. I was telling her how, I have all the right techniques, the right strategies. I have the podcast, the books, the things. It's not working for me, but it's working for everyone else. And she said, Brad, you're so attached to success that you're missing the whole point. Like you're under the impression that you should be in a different place than you are right now. She said, success isn't going to make you happier. It's rewiring your mind for happiness, for fulfillment, for joy, letting go of things like perfection, raising your emotional capabilities, letting go of limiting beliefs. That's what's going to lead to your definition of success. And so I went on this journey of studying and practicing and sharing all of those concepts. And I started to notice my life start to change and the lives of thousands of other people around me. And now it's morphed into this huge business helping people all over the world basically break the limiting beliefs and subconscious patterns that are getting in the way that they can't see, preventing them from what they want most. And so that's just a little bit of a background. And I'm excited to kind of share some of the things that will help you listening break through whatever you're facing right now.
Yeah. And I think so many moms listening, they are that person where they're like, I know I should eat more fruits and vegetables. I know I should drink more water. I know I should take some steps outside and, try to eat healthy, quote unquote, but like I just can't do it. Or, they're so focused on the barriers getting in their way, the time, my baby was up all night. And like we both understand that battle. Like we have young children. We both understand that children does make things more difficult. They make things more difficult when it comes to our health. But what are some of the biggest things that you see when it comes to mindset that are really preventing people from reaching their goals? And can we also touch on the fact that mindset is not just let's think positive and say a few affirmations. Let's actually dive into what mindset actually
Yeah,
is.
absolutely. I think, well, you nailed it when you started talking about I should do this, I should do that. And just so you know, if anyone is ever saying I should be doing something, it is a sign that they are not doing it. But one thing that most people don't recognize is that when you have that amount of expectations, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, and you're shooting all over yourself, what ends up happening is that you're actually punishing yourself. And success will never be built on punishment. It will never be built on breaking yourself down. And suffering comes from expectation. That's the root of it. So if you think about all of these shoulds in your life, you will notice a direct correlation between the happiest people and the people with the least amount of shoulds. So what do most people do? They say, well, okay, I just need a better mindset. And that's actually really annoying advice, right? Just have a better mindset about things. Because I think a lot of times people think that means just be more positive. And that is not what that means, because positivity is just as toxic as pessimism. It is looking at a situation and completely avoiding what you're going to have to face. It's avoiding the emotions that you're going to have to process. It's avoidance disguised as an empowering behavior, and it's not. And so what we want to do is we want to face a situation head on. We want to experience the emotions of it. We want to identify what's holding us back from actually taking consistent action. But one of the first places to start is to recognize that mindset is not just thinking positive. It is the sum total of the thoughts, the beliefs, and the emotions that are consistently playing habitually behind the scenes that either create empowered action or take away from it. And Brooke, you nailed it. I mean, I have a young child as well. I was up last night at, 1 in the morning for an hour and a half because of, she needed to go to the bathroom and then she fell when she was getting off the toilet and all this stuff. And so there are these obstacles. So it's not about obstacles just disappearing. It's about how do you show up to these obstacles with the right psychology. And so we can break that down quite a bit, but the last thing I'll share about that is take a look at your life right now. And what are all the things that you feel that you're not doing enough of? I should be a better parent. I should be more present. I should be more healthy. I should be eating more vegetables. I should be all these things. All of that punishment could be the very thing that is preventing you from actually taking action. Because think about it. What's actually going to yield better results? Someone that feels anxious, overwhelmed, and stressed? Or someone that's grateful, excited, and thinking in terms of possibility? Obviously, the latter. And
Mhm.
so the question then becomes, how do we set ourselves up to live in those more empowered states? And that's what we can start to get into if you want to. But suffering is the root, or comes from expectation. Expectation is the root of all suffering.
Yeah, I love the whole like we should stop shitting all over ourselves because I think moms are probably the most guilty of doing that. It's like we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. Can we actually talk about comparison for a second too of like how comparison can make our journey even more difficult and how really focusing on our like the gap in the gain. I read that book so long ago and I'm obsessed with it and I love really focusing on like our journey, our personal journey, where we started and how far we've come versus when we get stuck in that comparison trap. I know that that is a mindset where a lot of moms find themselves. They're just constantly comparing themselves to moms on the internet or moms that they don't know. And saying, well, she, lost the baby weight right away. Why can't I? And then they kind of fall into that victim mentality a little bit.
Totally. So, whenever someone is living in the comparison trap, it is a sign that they are currently feeling insignificant and craving more significance.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably heard the cliche that comparison is the thief of joy, right? I think a lot of people have heard that. And it's an act of violence on yourself. But really, what it illustrates is the subconscious pattern that's driving your life. There are needs driving all of us, and two of the most common needs that are driving us are number one, certainty, and number two, significance. Certainty is the need to make sure you're going to be okay, the need to avoid pain and gain pleasure. The problem with craving too much certainty is that you'll close the world in around you to feel a sense of control. And if your desire is to maintain control, then you never feel like you're expanding, so you feel like you're dying inside. And at the exact same time, significance is driving a lot of people's lives. Now, significance is the need to feel important, the need to feel like you matter. And especially with a bunch of kids running around and all sorts of challenges with parenthood, it's very easy to feel insignificant, or my kids need to act a certain way for me to feel significant. And then we see other people on the internet acting a certain way or living a certain way, and so we feel more insignificant. And so I would ask all of the moms listening to this that are struggling with comparison, I would ask you, how often do you celebrate yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And I would guess, because I've been doing this with 75,000 people from all over the world, I've seen every pattern imaginable. I would guess that the answer to that is not very often at all. And the only time that I see most moms give themselves permission to celebrate themselves is at the end of an objective, at the end of an outcome, when something happens that is in alignment with their expectations, which is the root of all suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Only then can I celebrate. And so, if we think about this feeling of significance, the craving of significance, which is the cause of comparison, when that leads a charge, you compare to everything else around you. When that is at the forefront and you're comparing consistently, nothing you do ever feels like enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a lot of times people will be like, well, I haven't earned celebrating myself. But if we think about the craving of significance, that comes because we are feeling insignificant or not worthy. Well, worth is an equation. Worth equals love over time. And so if we think about where a lot of people expect love to come from, they expect it to come from their kids. They expect it to come from their partner. But when love doesn't come their way in the way they expect, expectation again, then they feel unworthy. And so they place their worth on how other people in their life act. And so their emotions end up going up and down and up and down and up and down. If it's a good day with the kids, they feel good. If it's a tough day with the kids, they feel terrible. And the reality is there are going to be easy and hard days with children. And so the game becomes how do we make sure we stay elevated? Right? So if you are basing your own sense of worth on other people's emotions and behaviors, it's a losing game because it's never going to be consistently up. So we need to update that equation. Worth equals self-love over time. And by self-love, I don't mean a bubble bath or taking a Starbucks through Target. What I mean is actually celebrating how great you are, celebrating how you added value to your kids, to other people today, celebrating who you are as a person, celebrating what you did get done instead of looking at all the things that you didn't get done. And when you do that over time and you celebrate yourself, even for the smallest little things, like I'm going to celebrate myself for being on this podcast. Right when I get off here, I'm going to celebrate myself for the exercise that I did. Even if it's 5 minutes or an hour and a half, it doesn't matter. Those actions over time build up that sensation of worth. And when that sensation of worth grows, you're no longer feeling insignificant. So you're no longer needing to compare. And you're no longer seeking validation from other people that you're doing enough. Validation is very interesting because when you crave it, no amount of it ever feels like enough.
Mm-hmm.
And when you no longer need it, which only happens when you're feeling worthy, you get it all the time. So it's kind of counterintuitive. So that's kind of the equation for how do we tactically let go of comparison. It's just a feeling of insignificance, which is totally normal. And the antidote to that is to see how great you really are.
Yeah, the whole celebrating thing. This just brought up something, a pattern that I see all the time with my students. And so let's say a mom has like a weight loss goal, let's say 20 pounds, right?
Mhm.
She'll come to a call and be like, oh, I've only lost 18 pounds. And it's like kicking herself, like,
Mhm.
like I haven't made it yet. Maybe I should just give up and just go back to eating whatever. And it's like, hey, look at all this progress you've made. You've started going outside and walking. You've started eating breakfast instead of just going through Starbucks. You started doing all these healthy habits. Your energy is better. Your mood is better. You're seeing progress. But because they hadn't hit that specific number, which is totally arbitrary on the
Mhm.
scale yet, it's like they haven't given themselves permission to celebrate. And so I'm always telling moms, like, every week it's like, what are we celebrating this week? And then even encouraging them to do a milestone chart of like, what accomplishments have you done this week? Did you go to bed early this week? Did you make a healthy breakfast? Did you get outside and go for a walk? Because training our brain to look for wins is so crucial, because I just find that moms especially are so hard on themselves. They do not give themselves credit. And they feel like even when they hit that goal of that weight loss, even if they hit that 20 pounds, it still, for so many of them, does not feel like enough. Oh, well, Susie down the street, she hit 25. Or, oh, yeah, I hit 20, but you know what? Could try to go. Like that carrot is always moving. Can you touch a little bit on that carrot moving? Because I know I find myself doing this with business. I'm sure you found yourself doing this with business or whatever your goals are. It's like you hit this big accomplishment and you get so excited about it. And then you're like, what's next? Like you're so ready to just move past that. And I think it's really difficult sometimes to pause and give yourself credit for some of the things that you have accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of pieces to this. The first is I want to touch on what you said about retraining your brain. A lot of people don't recognize that whatever you focus on, you create more of. So let's do a
Mhm.
quick exercise just in and be safe if you're driving a car listening to this, okay? So look around the room you're in right now and count up the number of things that you can find that are red. Ready, go. Look for red, look for red, look for red, look for red, look for red. Count the things that are red, look for 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 red. Brooke, how many things do you find that were red?
One.
One thing. Fantastic. Amazing job. You get a gold star.
Woo.
But how many things did you find that were blue? Probably zero,
Yep.
right? Because you weren't looking for blue. But check this
Mm-mm.
out. Look around the room you're in right now and count up the number of things that you can find that are blue. Ready, go. Look for blue. Blue, 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 blue. Look for blue, look for blue, look for blue. Keep looking for blue, look 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 for blue. Keep looking for blue, 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 blue. Brooke, how many things?
Like six.
Six things that were
There's
blue.
a lot of greenish blue, you know.
Ah, and so you even saw greenish blue and
Yeah.
pretended it was blue so you'd feel successful at this exercise, right?
Yes, 100%.
But the point is, most people don't recognize that the blue, the celebration, the beauty, the happiness, the joy, it's all around them. They're just not looking for it. What they're
Hmm.
stuck in is looking for the red. And if we go to the science of this, there's a piece of our brain called the reticular activating system. It's basically a great filter that filters out all the things that you don't deem important. And so if you are telling your brain consistently, punish, 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 you're not doing enough, not doing enough, and not doing enough, look for red, look for red, look for red, it'll never see blue even though it's right there. And so
Hmm.
number one is a retraining of the brain. But then, how do we actually start the process of getting out of this? And you mentioned one goal after another, and it never seems like enough. And we bounce from goal to goal, peak to peak. Two things. Number one is a sign we're living in perfection. Now, perfection is the lowest standard you can ever set for your life because it guarantees pain. And I say that with so much love because I used to live there. And it creates pain in three ways. Number one is you are unlikely to start on something because you don't know how it's going to go. You're craving certainty. And so
Hmm.
you're always looking for ways to know it's going to be okay. But in any worthwhile endeavor, the only thing guaranteed is uncertainty. So you're unlikely to start and you'll just consume more and more and more content, making sure that you have the right answers. So you never feel like you actually get started. The second way it guarantees pain is that, let's say you do start moving, everything you do is about no longer losing. You're playing not to fail or playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And so you tiptoe around the edges of your goal instead of going all in on it because you think that somehow if you fail, you are not enough, which is not true, leading to more
Hmm.
pain. And number three is that no matter what you do, it'll never feel like enough. It doesn't matter if you accomplish something. You'll bounce from goal to goal, to-do list to to-do list, peak to peak, and it will never feel like it's enough even if you accomplish something. That
Hmm.
is a low standard. Now, you can raise that standard by breaking some of the limiting beliefs and thought patterns going on behind the scenes, and we can go through what I call the combination lock of success in just a moment. But to answer your question on how we get out of this, most people, they reverse engineer, how do I get to a goal? But
Hmm.
when's the last time you set an emotional goal for the outcome of your life? Now, I am a firm believer in beginning with the end in mind, right? Stephen Covey talks about that in his
Yep.
book, The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. But when I say beginning with the end in mind, this might sound morbid, but I reverse engineer everything from death. That sounds crazy,
Hmm.
but death is the greatest teacher in life. And the only reason we fear it is because we crave life, and life is a choice we have every moment. But if I'm reverse engineering from that last day, when I'm sitting on the front porch sipping sweet tea, watching my great grandkids go by in their hovercrafts, and I'm 129 years old, right? That's the vision of the future. But if I'm reverse engineering from that, well, then who do I need to be to actually live that quality of life?
Hmm.
And you'll notice that there are, yes, some things that we need to achieve and check off and accomplish to get there, but most people don't recognize that there's also emotional goals that a lot of people are avoiding and they don't know how to reach those goals and they'll just strive for more achievement without recognizing that you can have achievement all day long, but if you don't have fulfillment and you have achievement, all you have is failure. And so we need to
Hmm.
break that pattern of how do we achieve and feel alive simultaneously. And that's really where the magic happens.
The magic happens. I love it. I love it. Can you dive into that
Yes.
process a little bit?
Yeah, so here's a metaphor that I think will help a lot of people. Success, and when I say success, I don't mean monetary, I don't mean business, I don't mean weight loss, I mean whatever you want it to mean. Because who am I to tell you what to want, right? You
Hmm.
want what you want, I want what I want. What matters is that it sets your soul on fire and that it excites you. So success, if we're reverse engineering from success, we need to recognize that success is a combination lock. Now, speaking in the context of health and nutrition and those type of things, because that's what this podcast really is, let's say that there's a health and weight loss or fitness goal that we have, right? And it's, if I understand correctly, it's becoming very healthy without losing your milk supply and being the very best version of you postpartum. Am I understanding
Mm-hmm.
that correctly? Like that's the
Yep.
outcome we're looking for.
Yep.
And in my opinion, you have the best there is in teaching you the strategy of how to do that in the one and only Brooke Miller.
Woo!
So you have the right strategy. Now, it's important to recognize that strategy matters, right? You can't head east looking for a sunset. You're going to be very disappointed. You can't put the eggs in after the cake's done baking. You're going to be very disappointed. So the strategy matters. But most people, when they set out to create something or do something, they start with a question, how? How do I do it? And that is asking to kick yourself in the butt. Because
Mm-hmm.
the very act of asking how presupposes that you're not capable of finding an answer. It measures, am I actually able to do this? Am I qualified? Do I have what it takes? And then you start to get into these very limiting stories about yourself. And I can't do this. This is too hard, whatever it is. And so the emotional state that you live in consistently is pretty low. It might
Mm-hmm.
be overwhelmed, stressed, anxious. And so actually ask yourself in your life, from starting with the how, from asking that question at the beginning of a big undertaking, has it ever actually yielded really empowering, exciting emotions long term? No, it's led to stress and anxiety and overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
But the how matters. It's just not the only thing that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we think about one of those combination locks with three numbers on it, all three of the numbers have to be aligned if we want that lock to open and your definition of success to flow. Strategy, or the how, is one of those numbers. It's just the last one. It's
Mm-hmm.
needed, but what we don't recognize, there's two other numbers that are at play that most people don't recognize. And the first is your emotional state, your emotional quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say that you want here's a good example, you want to soothe your child, right? Let's just say that's the objective and the outcome, and you have a strategy for that. Well, if you are in a state of super anxiety and stress and tension versus calm and grateful and peaceful, what's the baby going to connect with,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, the calm.
Right? The calm.
Because I've done both with my 3-year-old, and I will tell you, one does not calm them.
Doesn't calm them. And
Nope.
even with more, let's say, grown kids, let's say that you are disciplining a child. What is a child going to actually model or respond to in an empowered way? Anger and yelling and stress, or boundaries and calm and peace, right? So
Mm-hmm.
your emotional quality of life determines if the strategy will actually work. It determines the potential you tap into and the quality of the action that you take. Now, I'm not sure how much detail you want me to go into, Brooke, but
Let's do it.
let's do it. Well, okay, I think this will add a lot of value here. A lot of times people make the mistake of thinking that they are an emotional thermometer, right? Depending on how the kids act, how their spouse acts, what's going on in their world, that determines the quality of their emotions. And that is
Mm-hmm.
not true. It is giving away your personal power to something other than you. You are living dependent on other people. So, what we need to recognize is that we have an emotional thermostat that's set. Now, let's say that it's a scale of 0 to 100, and 100 is the most ideal, right? That's just unconditional love, deep appreciation, the most ideal emotions. And 0 is like total deep, dark depression, right? Well, I've done this for a long time, and I've noticed that when people are not experiencing consistently empowered emotions, their emotional home is set to a pretty low temperature. So, have you ever noticed that anxious people tend to find something to get anxious about?
Mm-hmm.
Grateful people tend to find something to get grateful for. Happy people tend to find something to get happy for. Angry people tend to want to call the manager, right? Like it's just a
Karen.
it's just a pattern, right? And so everyone has an emotional home they go back to. Even if they don't like their home, they live there, so they go back to it. It's what they've practiced most often. So a lot of people, let's say that your temperature is set at 65 degrees, anxiety and overwhelm. Let's just make that up, right? Okay, so my emotional home is there, and something really, really tough happens in my life. The temperature is going to drop down. It's going to go to 15, 20 degrees, whatever it is, sadness, depression, whatever it is. And you will feel those sensations. You'll live in those emotions. But because your temperature is set to 65, you don't stay there. Your furnace kicks on and you rise back up eventually, only to overwhelm and anxiety, though. But the same is
Mm-hmm.
also true if things are going really, really well, let's say your kid is just having a wonderful day, it's beautiful, amazing memories, and you're just up there at 95 degrees vibing. Your temperature is set to 65, so you don't allow yourself to enjoy it. The
Mm-hmm.
AC kicks on and you're not present and you drop yourself back down to anxiety and overwhelm. You find yourself something to get anxious and stressed about. And this is
Mm-hmm.
very, very normal. It's just a pattern. And most people don't recognize that there's ways to actually elevate that emotional home to a higher level. So the first the first combination number that we have is our emotional state. If we think about manifesting a really beautiful world, it comes from our consistently dominant emotions. So I want you to ask yourself, listening to this right now, what is your consistently dominant emotional state? Be honest.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Yeah.
are consistently in anxiety and overwhelm, how can you ever expect consistent joy and happiness? It's just not
Mm-hmm.
going to happen.
Right.
So the first thing we need to do is we need to master that. We need to master our emotions and the patterns that create empowered emotions. Before I go on to number two, does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I think when it comes to regulating emotions, this is, I think people are listening to this and thinking like, oh, I just like do this once. It's a process. But I'm assuming that you get the tools and this is a lifelong journey of like catching these things and kind of constantly like bringing your car in for the oil change, right? Like consistently doing things to keep your temperature regulated.
Yeah,
Does that
it's
make
uh it's conditioning, right?
Yes.
It's if you train you've trained yourself over the course of time, and there's so many things that go into this, right? There's traumas, there's things from your childhood, there's conditioning, there's results in your life, your marriage, your health, all so many factors that go into it. But when you consistently, through repetition, 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 recondition your emotional state like a muscle,
Yeah.
right? You can train it to be very healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean you don't exercise. You still exercise, you still eat healthy, but you have to consistently train it over the course of time. In the beginning, it might feel like it's like you go to the gym and you lift weights right away and you're pretty sore
Yeah.
and you don't see a great amount of results right away.
Yeah.
It's like that, but over the course of time, you can lift heavier and heavier, run longer and longer, whatever it is. And it's a positive intention instead of this big undertaking.
Yeah, I love that. I just wanted to clarify that for moms who think it's like I'm just gonna do this one thing one time and I'm healed, you know. I think
Yeah.
sometimes people want a quick fix and it's like you can learn the tools and strategies, but it's up to you to consistently use them.
100%. I mean, short term is sexy and it's attractive and it's something that we all want. It'd be easier if it were quicker. But if we think about it, like the people that are the happiest, most fulfilled, they're long-term people. They're willing to
Yes.
sacrifice short-term now for long-term benefit later. And the people that do the
100%.
opposite are in pain. So
Yep.
the second number is your belief systems, and otherwise known as your BS. But like really what I mean is, what are the convictions you have that are playing behind the scenes? So if I have the conviction that I'm a failure, right? And that is the story that I've told myself consistently over time. I'm a failure. Does it really matter if you have the right strategy?
Right.
Right? It
100%.
doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so if we think about a belief, a limiting belief as a tabletop, right? That you eat dinner at every single night. All of the table legs that are supporting that tabletop are references of your past. They could be traumas, they could be things from your parents, they could be consistent exposures in your existing life, results in your life. And there are strategies and patterns to break those table legs so that belief crumbles. Because it doesn't matter who you are. If you believe I'm a failure, I'm a bad mom, whatever it is, you could have the right strategy all day long and it's not going to happen. Plus,
Mm-hmm.
beliefs and emotions, they support each other, right? So if you have an
Right.
empowered emotion, you're less likely to go into a limiting belief. If you have an empowered belief, you're less likely to go into a limiting emotional pattern. So they
Mm-hmm.
support each other. And so what we need to do is identify and recognize what are the greatest limiting beliefs of our life, go through a process of breaking those limiting beliefs so that we can replace them with an empowering one. And it's easier than you
Mm-hmm.
might think, but it's a process that takes a couple of days to really lock in. And when you do that and recognize the power that your beliefs have, like think about this for just a moment, the potential of human beings is virtually unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
But that potential taps into the amount of action that we do or don't take. And the action we do or don't take impacts the results that we get. And those results, they directly impact the beliefs that we have. So our belief is the foundation of all of it. Belief influences potential, potential influences action, action influences results, and results reinforce the belief that we already have. So we need to change at the root level. If you have a different root, you have a different fruit. So
Mhm.
these are the combination pieces of this lock. You change your emotional state that's dominant and consistent, and you identify and shatter the limiting beliefs hiding in your mental blind spots that you can't see. Then all of a sudden, the right strategies will start working because you're putting yourself in the state to allow them to actually work. That's
Mhm.
how we need to actually transform from the inside out. And most people think if I just have a how, I'll change, but there's deeper work at play that we need to work on.
Yeah, and I want to give an example quick because I think that this one will like help solidify everything that you just said. So there was a coaching call recently where this happened several coaching calls where a mom was like, "Oh, I'm addicted to sugar. Oh, I can't be trusted around that. I'm addicted to sugar." And I was like, "You just realized that you gave yourself an identity of somebody who is a sugar addict." And she's like, "What?" And I was like, well, I mean, of course you're going to be out of control around sugar, and every time there's cookies around, you're going to eat it because you're a sugar addict. You just declared it to the universe. And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "How about we shift the narrative and say instead, I'm somebody who can have one cookie and can walk away. I'm somebody who is not addicted to sugar. Sugar isn't addicting. Like, we have to shift the narrative, right?" And she was like, "Oh, okay." And then it was like all of a sudden cookies could be in the house because she didn't view herself as a sugar addict anymore. She viewed herself as, I am somebody that can have a cookie and can move on with my life and still hit my goals. And so it's like when we start to remove these limiting beliefs and shift our identity, then the behaviors become easier, right? And same with like lazy. Like I've had moms say like, "Oh, I'm just lazy." And I'm like, "Well, of course you're not going to go to the gym. You're calling yourself lazy all day. Of course it's going to be hard to go to the gym." And I was like, "You don't have to call yourself an athlete, but like a mom who walks." And it was like, "Oh yeah, okay, I'm a mom who walks." And it's like it's gonna be easier to go for a walk if you declare that. And so I think there's so many times that we declare something or give ourselves an identity, an unwanted identity, and we do it so flippantly, but we don't realize how powerful that actually is. Like us saying, "I'm lazy, I have no willpower, I can't be trusted around that, I'm just addicted to sugar." It's like, man, you're just making it harder to
Mhm.
reach your health goals when you're declaring that.
100%. There's something in psychology called transformational vocabulary. It's an
Mm.
NLP principle that will really help with this. If I say, I'm so overwhelmed right now, scale of 1 to 10, that's probably what, an 8 out of 10 emotional intensity, right?
Oh yeah.
Versus if I say, I'm a wee bit perturbed, like that's a 3 out of 10, right? And the reason why is the words you use to describe your experience become your experience. And
Mm-hmm.
because we crave so much certainty and it's a survival need, the strongest force in the human personality is the need to stay consistent with who you already think you are. So if you
Yeah.
think you're a sugar addict, you're going to want to stay there because you know how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we just need to break out of that. And to whoever said that they're lazy, just a little bit of coaching for you. You are not lazy, you just have crappy goals.
Yes, I love that. I always tell them like you're just out of practice.
Yeah.
Like you're not lazy, you're just out of practice. But
Yeah.
I like yours better. You just
Yeah,
have crappy
you have
goals.
nothing to fight for. Without a compelling vision of the future, you're forced to focus on the problems of the past and present. And
Hmm.
so find something compelling and exciting to fight for. And I get that that's so hard with a kid at home or multiple kids at home. But there's a way to reconnect with that very easily.
Yeah, 100%. Is there anything else you want to leave the listeners with?
You know, if any of you guys are connecting to what we're talking about today, and you're like, okay, Brad, this makes a lot of sense. And I get that I need to shift this, but how do I actually shift this? How do I actually make this real? Because this sounds great and motivating and makes me think it differently. Um, this is actually the most ideal time to be listening to this episode because starting next week, I am hosting a free 5-day challenge, bright and early in the morning, for all 5 days to show how do we not only identify what you want most out of life right now, connect to those huge dreams, huge goals that will actually move you. How do we identify what are our current limiting beliefs, and then we spend the week dismantling them and raising our emotional standards through a variety of different challenges over the course of the week. It's called the Success Accelerator. It's helped 75,000 people from all over the world. It is totally free. It is a life-changing experience. So if you took a look at what we were saying today and you're like, okay, but how? How do I actually make that real for me based in the context of my life? This challenge will show you how to customize it to you and how to give you practical tools that you can use literally starting on day one to actually make it real. So Brooke's got the link for you to enroll. We start on Monday bright and early, but I hope you choose to
How
join
early
us.
are we talking? How early?
7 a.m. Central, so nothing crazy. And there's
not bad.
recordings available too. So
Yeah. I I can handle 8
yeah,
a.m.
yeah,
That's
we're not doing no 3 a.m. stuff. So
okay. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And again, the replays are clutch for the busy moms who are trying to get the kids out the door for school in the morning. You guys can just catch the replay during nap time. So,
Mhm.
yes,
Absolutely.
I will be there in the challenge too. So, I'll be cheering you guys on in there as well. And thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge
Of
and
course.
being on the podcast. And Brad's also going to be hanging out with our postpartum shift students as well, doing an exclusive workshop. So, if you're a student, stay tuned for that. All right. Thank you.